I'm Elaine Miller-Karras, and I'm here with my dear friend, Gloria Simoneaux, who I will introduce to you in just a second. I want to remind you that we are live on Facebook, and you can go to Resiliency Within Facebook page, and you can see us as well as hear us. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend. And she's the founding director of Harambee Arts, an expressive arts organization and training program based in sub-Saharan Africa, Nepal, Dominica, and Haiti. Harambee Arts is designed to serve children and women globally who have been traumatized by illness, poverty, violence, trafficking, incarceration, autistic spectrum disorder, and other crises. Gloria taught expressive arts to counselors in Nairobi as a Fulbright Scholar in 2008. I was really happy to meet her there actually in 2009, where she and I went to the women's prison in Nairobi. She also took me to the Kibera slum, and I know she'll tell us a little bit about that. But I have to say, one of my fond memories of Gloria is we were in kind of a dilapidated car pulling up to the Kibera slum, which, by the way, is the largest slum in Africa. And all of a sudden, these children start running to the car, and they're just, they're saying, "Miss Gloria, Miss Gloria," and she's surrounded. Literally, the children are just embracing her, and she's embracing them back. And then we went into the slum, which, if any of you've been there, is a place that has vitality and a lot of sadness and despair. It has all the mixtures of life, and there's a lot of resiliency there, I would say. But what she did, she had pieces of lumber, she had pieces of paper. The children were getting their art instruments, and they were painting and producing the most amazing things. And so I think I'm going to just say, Gloria, that was 20 children, and now there's 200. But I'm going to save that because you're going to tell us more about that. But in any event, she's also the founder of Drawbridge, an arts program for homeless children, now in its 33rd year, and has worked extensively with pediatric oncology patients in San Francisco hospitals. She's a consultant with Save the Children, Railway International, and other non-government organizations, and has taught in her community at CIIS and JFK universities. She is also taught at University of Nairobi and Connect, a family therapy institute in Zimbabwe. And Gloria is, true to her indomitable spirit. We were just sharing, can we share our ages, Gloria? I mean, I'm in my 60s and she's in her mid 70s. But I want you to know that she has her second Fulbright right now fellowship, and she's working with the Ministry of Social Welfare in Dominica, a tiny island in the Eastern Caribbean that was 90% destroyed by Hurricane Maria in 2017. And she's going to talk about how she cultivates hope even in the aftermath, really, of the most unspeakable traumas, whether they be natural disasters or human-made ones. She believes in all children of all abilities and accomplishments are valued. And she's going to help us understand, too, that she's just completing a project about 2 series of coloring books that she's producing. You are the star of this story, and I can't forget. So, my dear friend, Gloria, welcome, welcome, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Elaine. It's really great to be here. It's a great honor. I want to dedicate my time on this show to thousands of women and children who've trusted me with their heart, with their story. And that's why we're here today. I could name them, but that would take the whole hour.
I know you could. The way that, so I'm just wondering, just as we're starting today, and you've heard the introduction, and maybe you're thinking of these thousands of people that you've impacted around the globe. What's on your mind today as we get started, Gloria, together?
Thank you. Well, one thing is that I'm looking out at my garden and I can see a beautiful purple flower, and that makes me feel good. This is the beginning of Yom Kippur week, which is the high holy holiday for Jewish people. And so it's significant to me, and it's significant in terms of turning inward and acknowledging and reflecting on our own, I wouldn't say failings, but how to become a better person, the best version of ourselves. So that's what it means to me, to really reflect on how I can become my most authentic self. So that's something that's really alive in me today, the beginning of the Yom Kippur holiday.
And, Gloria, I have to say, from knowing you over the years, we were reflecting as we were getting ready to start the show today, that Gloria and I have this way of bumping into each other, either on purpose or by accident, every few years. And, it's just been quite a journey for both of us. And one of the things that has illuminated me as in my friendship with Gloria is just that contribution to the world, and how you'll go to places, honestly, that some people would never venture or even think about going. And this hasn't stopped you, because you're an elder in in this world right now. But I'm just wondering, as we start, also, how has your lived experience shaped and illuminated the work you do in the world?
Thank you. Well, just before we go into that, I would like to just acknowledge how I met you. If you
Okay.
just take a minute
Well, that's okay. You
and
can say it.
and
You can say that.
um, I went to a somatic experiencing conference in Berkeley many years ago, and there was Elaine, and I was privileged to hear her talk. And after the talk, there were a lot of people milling around and trying to get close to Elaine, and I just barged my way through. And I said, Elaine, you and I have to know each other. And she invited me out for lunch. And ever since then, I've been attending her workshops, doing advanced training. We went to Kenya together, and it's been a very, very, very important part of my growth. So I just thank you so tremendously.
Well, thank you, Gloria. You know how much I appreciate you and the work that you do in the world.
Thanks,
Can
Elaine.
you can you tell
So,
us a little bit about what
yeah,
brought you to doing this work in the world?
right. Well, I think I'll just briefly mention that my own childhood was a little uncomfortable for me. It wasn't, um, I didn't really feel like I was embraced for my whole self, for my imagination, for my wild spirit. Um, I was raised in a family of doctors and lawyers, and I didn't fit into that mold. So it was difficult to really express my full self. And there was a lot of love, but I didn't feel that I could really fully be who I was. So my whole life, I've been um, traveling the planet, trying to give children the experience of being their full self, of trying to set a platform where children could have complete joy. All children, children who lived in poverty, children who were sick in hospital, children with no home, children who had experienced the worst violence. And I wanted to give to all children an experience of being heard, held, valued, and that they were really important, and that they had something of value to contribute back to to their community. So I would say there's a direct, obviously, correlation to what I felt was lacking in my own upbringing. And this was not all very conscious, but I started to work with children in a hospital in Brooklyn when I was 13 years old. So I've always been on this path. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, when we talk about expressive arts, people may not know what that is. What does it mean to be an expressive art therapist as you are, and how you bring these expressive arts to children all over the world?
Expressive arts for me is using various media, visual arts, painting, drawing, as well as movement, drama, storytelling, and to express who you are, to express your history, your emotions, your deepest self.
And so, as you say that, what the essence of expressive arts is, you created Harambee Arts, HARAMBEE arts.org is the website if you want to learn more about her work. But so, what is the history? Well, how did that come to be?
Hmm. Um, in 2007, I was awarded a Fulbright Fellowship. Um, I really wanted to go to Kenya to work, but I was told that it was too competitive and I should try to find another locale. So I applied for a Fulbright in Zimbabwe, where there were very few people who were interested in working there. I got the fellowship. I went to Washington, D.C. for my orientation, and I was told it's too dangerous right now in Zimbabwe. What's your second choice? So I said, Kenya. So, and this has happened to me many, many times in my life. And I ended up in Kenya. I spent a year and a half training psychologists and counselors and teachers on how to use the arts to form deep relationships with children and to enter their world. And while I was there, I noticed several populations that I felt really needed attention, one of which were children with special needs. There's very, very, very little attention given to children with special needs in Kenya and in most places in the world. There's a lot of stigma. Sometimes women who give birth to a child who is different, they have to leave the village, they're ostracized. Children are often left at home, tied to a table if their parents have to go to work. It's really quite terrible, terrible stories. And then there were children in the Kibera slum who live in poverty, no sanitation, no really no hygiene, no running water. Their houses are made of cardboard and tin. And I was very, very attracted to those children and started to spend time with them every weekend. And then I was asked to do a project at Langato Women's Prison with the HIV positive women. And at the time, there was a warden who came out as HIV positive at the prison. And that was very, very revolutionary. And she asked for the permission to start a support group for those women. So at the beginning in 2008, we had 8 women in the support group. And that's when I started. And it was such a joyful meeting and so unusual in the oppressive situation of the prison for the women to have joy and to laugh and dance and eat and sing and paint. So all the prisoners, 700, wanted to join, and they all went for voluntary testing, which was one of the goals of the wardens. So all of a sudden, everybody was going for testing, and the ones who were tested negative were very disappointed because they couldn't come to the support group. But today, we have about 200 women in the support group that runs twice a month.
So Gloria,
so that's how Harambee Arts.
Yeah, I was really, I was so, you invited me to come with you. And I remember taking the women through a grounding exercise and also seeing just the joy of dancing. And some of the women were going to be there for the rest of their lives. Some of them were only going to be there for a short period of time. But I remember that probably at that time, maybe there were about 40 when I went there in 2009. And so now that I know that you're living in the United States right now. So how have you created the capacity for your ideas to continue like in Kenya? Because I know you have the children in the Kibera slum who are continuing to paint and do the amazing things that you started. And also who's following through with the women in the prison?
We have a very, very, very strong staff. Most of them have been with me since 2008. And Lillian was in my very first training, and she's our country director. She's a phenomenal leader and just an all-around wonderful, very, very present woman. And she holds this staff in Kenya. There are 14 of them. 5 of them were children in the program years ago. They're now big adults, and they understand from the inside what is needed. And then one of them is a prisoner who I believe you have met when you were there, Jennifer, and she was released, and I trained her. So she's also part of our staff. And the staff, I look at them as being part of fellow travelers on the path of wholeness. We've all worked really hard together, and they have entered as a group, their fears and their losses, and they support each other on a very deep level. And that's why now they're able to sit with children who have also the same type of losses and trauma. So the staff has really come together as a family. I'm so proud of them. And
And
they,
Gloria, I think what's important to me that I want to highlight about what you've done is
yeah,
that, sometimes we see, because we have been at many disasters, that sometimes people come in and they give fish to everyone, to use that kind of
yeah,
metaphor, and
yeah.
then they leave. But I think what you've done that I've been very impressed in is that you've created capacity,
Mhm.
um, with the people who are from the country that you very much cared for, which is Nairobi. And you've left something with them that they're now doing on their own. And then
Yeah,
it becomes their own with their own cultural
exactly,
lens. And I
exactly.
think that, one of the questions I think is important to ask is that here you are, myself included, you're a white woman, and
Yeah,
you're going into places where there are people of color, and and also we have seen the horrible vestiges of colonialism.
right.
So how have you been able
Mhm.
to be accepted and embraced, with the ideas that you've brought into not only Nairobi, but I know you've been to Nepal. There's other places in the country, although Nepal was never colonized, but I know other countries were. So if you can just share a little bit about your reflections on that, I think
Yeah,
in
thank
today's
you.
world, it's a very important question.
I guess I would say that I am super aware of my privilege. Um, and I'm really, really careful and conscious not to set myself up as the leader. We have no real leaders. We're all on the equal playing field. And my projects, both in Kenya and Nepal, are completely locally run and locally owned. So even though I might want things to go my way, I often want things to go my way. But I've really learned to like not say anything and listen. And that's, I have a tremendous, tremendous respect for indigenous wisdom and the culture of each country that I enter. And I understand, I've made many mistakes, but I understand that they are the ones who really know what is needed. And so that I have a close friend who's an Indian woman, and we were having lunch a few years ago, and I said, I go to these places and I just feel the same as everybody. And um, and she looked at me really hard and she said, but you're not, and they don't feel that. And that was a life changer for me because I realized at that moment that I am different. I'm white and I'm privileged, and I need to hold that. And so that
Well,
was,
and I think we call that what I've seen you and how I've seen you operationalize what you do in the world is, cultural humility.
hmm,
Is, at one hand, yes, acknowledging that you have a privilege, and then not using that privilege in a disparaging way or a
yes, thank
non-inclusive
you.
way.
Yes,
So, and because I saw that too, because when I was in
mm,
Nepal after the earthquake there, um, you weren't there, but I met all the women that you
yes,
had cultivated as part of your program. They came to the
right,
training that we did,
right,
and to see their appreciation of what you had shared with them,
mm,
and that now that they were imbuing all over Kathmandu was quite
mhm,
extraordinary to see. And
mm,
hopefully we can talk a little bit about them in a moment. But I'm just wondering, um, there's a lot of pain that you have
mhm,
seen. I know I've seen a lot. People often ask me, how can you go to these
yeah,
places where there's so much
yeah,
pain? And of course, you've already said that I have a privilege of going in and leaving,
yes,
in terms of it not being the continuation of my life. And at the same time, also wanting to see, if we can leave something behind that can be utilized by the people that we share, whether it's expressive arts or, in my case, the community resiliency model. So, how do you deal with the pain that you
mm,
encounter?
okay, good question. Um, well, first of all, I have this enormous faith in the people that I work with, both all my staff and all the children and women that we meet. I know that they have the answers within them. Um, and I hold them. I think this is my biggest gift. I can see the beauty, the value, the worthiness in every single unique individual that I come in contact with. And that's what I focus on. So the pain obviously is there, but I manage not to take it in because I see the real goodness and the beauty most of the time.
So I'm wondering, because I've seen, you've sent me some of the wonderful pictures that people have drawn, and there's a certain hopefulness that that I've seen, just even how
Yeah,
that's expressed. But I
right.
wonder if you could just maybe even tell us a couple of stories
Yeah.
about how you've touched people and how the expressive arts has been a
Yeah.
vehicle to heal the pain and suffering of
Okay.
others in the places that you've been.
Well, there's two things that come up. One is, for me, the whole foundation of this work is listening, deep listening,
Mhm.
and learning how to be present, um, which I'm still learning. I'm still cultivating that in myself. But creating a safe place. So once I met with a little girl from El Salvador who was recently, had just moved into a shelter in San Francisco, a very chaotic place where there's no privacy and really no dignity. And the little girl came to me and sat with me for a while, about a half hour, and I just felt her, and I know she felt me. And we only met once. And she painted a house. She called it a crying house. And the house had tears coming from all the windows. And the little girl needed to paint that. And once she painted that, there was a kind of a relief because she shared her story with me just in that making of that painting. So I'm a very strong believer in creating the space and the right thing will happen. The kids express what they need to express.
Well, I think the other thing that's touching me as you're telling us about this little girl from El Salvador is that right now in our world, we have people coming from Afghanistan
Yeah,
to all different parts of the world that have left as a result of the Americans pulling out.
yes.
And also, we both love Haiti because we've both worked in Haiti. And I know that the Haitians have yet again had another tragedy of an earthquake as well as the political unrest. So when you hear about these kinds of events, are there things that you can share with our listeners that might be important if, let's
Yeah.
say, maybe there might be a community that comes from Afghanistan, or maybe they're called to maybe help in Haiti? What are some of the ideas that come forth as you see the suffering in the world right now? Because we've both seen that the suffering doesn't stop, it continues.
Well, that's a really big question, but I mean, really, the only thing that comes up for me is um, to encourage people not to donate to the really big NGOs. I was in Haiti right after the 2010 earthquake, and billions of dollars were funneled in, and nothing happened. So again, this is about trust in the local people. They know what is needed. There are some really strong, I don't know about, not Afghanistan. That's a whole other story that I'm not very conversed in. But for example, in Haiti, there are many very strong Haitian-run organizations, and that's where the support needs to go. Trusting in the locals. So that's the thing that comes up for me.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes there are NGOs that work within the United States that are connected to the NGOs that help to disseminate funds that are actually directly
Uh-huh.
helping
Yeah,
the
that's right.
people.
Right.
So because I know that, for example, one of the larger NGOs is Save the Children, and you're a consultant with them. Can you tell us a little bit about how you consult with Save the Children?
Oh, well, I am actually not very connected with Save the Children any longer. And I chose to basically to move on because I'm not a fan of going into a 2 week workshop and then trying to um, trying to work with 7,000 children.
Oh
And
my, that's a
I
lot of
like,
kids.
yeah, I mean, my plan is let's try to focus on 100 children. So I have a little bit of a difference of attitude. So I am available to Save the Children as a consultant, but I don't 100% match.
And so could you possibly maybe share with us why you think the smaller workshop idea is can be helpful for children? I mean, is it there's more
Well,
individualized attention, or what do you
yeah,
say about that?
definitely. Yeah, I'm not into numbers and I'm not into um, pleasing any donors who want to give $1 million. I'm very careful. We have a very small budget and we can totally control where that money goes. So the important part is the quality and really connecting with children in a very profound way, not superficial and have 200 children in a classroom. That's not what I'm interested
Yeah,
in.
and I guess the other part about what I'm hearing you say too is that, for example, you said that one of the people that some of the children that you've initially met in the Kibera slum are now working for your organization in
Yes,
Kenya. And
yes,
so when you impact one child, you don't
yes.
know how that one
No,
child's going to continue to
that's
impact.
exactly right.
And is
That's
that kind of
exactly right.
integrated into your philosophy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my staff in Kenya has really grown to, they have all found, they've found meaning in their life and an ability to feel happiness. And they attribute all of this to being part of Harambee Arts. And it's very powerful.
And so when you talk about, you talked about the little girl from El Salvador, is there any particular story that comes to mind about your work in Nairobi?
In Nairobi or
Yeah.
Nepal? Oh,
Well,
in
we'll come to
Nairobi.
Nepal after the break.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, there's thousands of stories. Just let's see. Um, the children are able to voice, we give them a voice. A lot of children, when you ask them how they feel, children all over the world, they will always say fine. And then we see them painting, I am sad, I am angry. And so we're able to go deeply with the children. And we do a lot of movement. I believe in, and partly what I've learned from you is that dance and movement really frees up and softens the body. So we do a lot of play and movement, and the children, we do group work, so they support each other. Um, I believe that the therapy is in the sharing within the group and in the playing within the group and the laughing. So that's,
So it's like what I'm, 'cause I think what I've seen you in, really in action is how you help people also enhance their relationship. And when you say the group work that you do, I think I've seen that in action. So
yeah,
that's really inherent in the group work that you do and getting the children to move and even to be in the same room and doing art together.
sure.
And so
I,
you see that collective effort.
yes, I heard from Bessel van der Kolk yesterday a quote that he sent his team to Sri Lanka after the tsunami, and they wrote back and said, "We don't need to be here. They're dancing, they're singing, they know exactly what to do." And that's how I feel. I just have to continuously listen to my staff, and they know exactly what to do. And there's a lot of celebrating and drumming and moving and dancing. And that's what's really needed. And the art, of course.
Yes, and of course, I want to hear more. We want to hear more about this. So it's time to take our short break. We'll be back in just a few moments. Back with Gloria Simoneaux, who will tell us more about her work in Nepal and also some of the coloring books that I think could be really valuable for all children all over the world. So more in just a little bit. Back with Gloria Simoneaux in just a couple minutes. Time for our break.
All right, great job. Good segment. We're all clear.
Thank you. All
Good.
right, Gloria, and we're still on Facebook, so you're doing so well in talking about the different ways that you're influencing children. So as we're on this little pause on Facebook, and we're still on Facebook Live, is there anything that comes up from the first segment that you might want to say right now?
Yeah, well, I want to mention that one of the things we're proud of is training the wardens at the Langata prison to see the women not as worthy and valuable and not as their mistake. So there's a real shift at the prison because of that. And we give the prisoners a forum, a place where they can feel normal. The prison environment is absolutely terrible. So we bring in this normalcy and we don't care about what their mistake or what they've done to end up in prison. And the same in this special needs school. We train the teachers to see the children as capable with a huge potential. They're mostly think about these kids as they can't do anything. And the kids are brought to our art class, and the teachers say, well, if they can't do it, just let me know and I'll bring them back to the other classroom. And this one, he can't hold a brush. He can't use his hand. And we're like, okay, we'll keep you posted. And this little one who can't hold a brush paints the most extraordinary paintings you can even believe. I've been selling them. And so the teachers and the parents get a chance, like a window into the preciousness, the value of these children who are seen invisible in society. And we see their beauty and their awesomeness. And so we can share that. And so that's the same wherever we go in Kibera. The children don't get a chance at home to feel really valued. Their parents are casual laborers. They don't have time to sit with their kids and chit chat or really spend quality time. So the children come to our program and they learn that they are unique and valuable and that each one of them has something really spectacular to offer and to give back. And we listen and we really get down on their level. We don't like the word help. We are allergic to the word help. We meet, we join the children in their world, and we don't put our own agenda on them. So that's why it works.
Oh, I love
10 seconds.
I love what you just said. So we're going to go back and I'm going to ask you those same questions again because I want to highlight what you've just talked about on Facebook Live because I think our Voice America folks need to hear that too. Thanks, Matt. Are you ready to take us back? Yeah, here we go.
I hope I can remember.
I'll prompt
This
you.
is Resiliency Within with Elaine Miller-Karras. To reach the show during our live broadcast, please call in to 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. You may also send an email to elaine@resiliencywithin.com. Now, back to this week's show.
Welcome back. I'm here with Gloria Simoneaux, who is telling us about Harambee Arts, harambeearts.org, if you want to get a hold of her. And we were talking during our little break, and I'm going to actually ask her to share with you some of the thoughts that she had. But the first thing I'm going to ask you, Gloria, is when you've worked with the women in the prison, you've also worked with the wardens. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with them and how that's influenced the prison system in Nairobi?
Yeah. The wardens are very rough and very strict. And we have helped them to understand that the prisoners have value and they're worthy. And they're not only their mistake. And so we've facilitated this within the wardens to understand that, to really grasp that these women are wonderful, valuable women. They're not only their mistake. And so that's been very, very powerful.
And this thought, because people who have listened to my show before, I always ask the question, what else can be true about things in your own life, but also in something like this, right? So the women have obviously committed a crime to get there, but there's so much more than their crime.
That's right.
And also the way that people recover and they reflect about what they've done in their life to create some new meaning.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of meaning that can happen when you are incarcerated that we've certainly seen all over the world. And I certainly got a glimpse of it when we were there in Nairobi. Yeah. So that work continues, and not only with the women, but also with the wardens. Well, then, right. and I think there's a second part. And I think one of the things I've been struck about your work, Gloria, is working with children of all different abilities. And as you said earlier, we know that oftentimes, not only in our own country, but in other countries, that children who are have different abilities are not treated sometimes very well. And so can you share with us your philosophy, the philosophy of Harambee Arts, of if you see a child that, and you shared a story of a little boy that couldn't use his hands. Can you share that story with us?
Well, at the School for Special Needs, we have managed to really unleash the beauty and the potential in each child, and train the teachers to also see the whole child and not their differences. So in Kenya, as I said earlier, there are terrible stigmas, even within the school, which is a safe, so-called a safe environment. And the teachers will bring children to our painting sessions, and occasionally they'll say, I don't think this child can do anything. He can't speak, he can't hold a brush, so send him back to my class if need be. And then this will say, okay, sure. And because of the love that is holding this child, and the knowing the value of this child, the children get that. They reflect it back. And so there's this one boy who was dropped off. The teacher said he can't use his hands. And within 10 minutes, he made one of the most extraordinary paintings I have ever seen, with a lot of detail and color. And I actually ended up selling that particular painting at a fundraiser. So we've helped the teachers to understand that the children are not just their difference and their disabilities, and the parents. Parents come in and they're like, oh my God, my child did that. And we give the children a lot of freedom and just a tremendous amount of support, loving support.
I'm struck as I'm hearing you speak, is that it's almost like, of course, that there is something that's a challenge that they have
Yeah,
in terms of learning or speaking or whatever it might
yes,
be, but you see their potential.
that's right.
Yeah. So, so how did that happen? I know you talked about yourself as a child.
Yeah.
Gloria, not everyone sees the potential that I've seen that you reflect back to
Yeah.
children and to adults. So can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I think I'm going to have to charge you for that.
You're going to charge me for that. Okay. So go ahead.
No, I don't really know how to answer that. I have a very deep connection to love. That's all I can say about that, Elaine. I really do.
Well, I do think that love has a lot to do with it. I had a guest a while back. Her name is Joy Miller, and she did her doctoral thesis on what helped women survive
Mhm,
in Auschwitz during the
mhm,
Holocaust. And
mhm,
the overarching thing was love, the
mhm.
love that was developed between the
Uh-huh.
survivors, the people
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
And so I think that love can be something that overrides even the darkest things that we
yeah,
experience as humans.
I think so.
And I do think that children know, they sense it.
Of course they sense it.
They sense it from
Absolutely.
you, that kind of love that I've seen that you give to all children and
Yeah,
adults that you
yeah,
encounter on
yeah,
this planet.
yeah. Thank you. So, yeah, also with the children in Kibera, I was saying that their parents don't have the resources to give them what they need at home. The parents are casual laborers selling mangoes or selling fried fish. And the children come to our program, and it's the only time that they get this. They're seen for who they really are in their essence. And for the contribution they can make, and and the joy they actually have inside. So yeah, we bring that all over. And I used to be very careful about using the word love with funders. I wouldn't. But now I'm very proud to just say this is a love story,
It is a love
and
story.
that's how I
Yes.
hold it.
So Harambee Arts is a love story.
That's
That's what
right.
I'm going to say. But
Exactly.
so, and that brings me, I want to talk a little bit more about Nepal. So after the earthquake in Nepal,
Yeah.
the Trauma Resource Institute went a couple times and worked with survivors of the earthquake. And
Yes.
I can't remember if I called you or you happened to call me, but we said, oh, you
Yeah.
said, oh, Elaine, you have to meet,
Yes.
the ladies that I have that are working there. And they were lovely, and you sent them to the training. So can you tell us a little bit about how
Yeah.
you found them, about,
Yes.
about the work that you've done with
Right.
people who survive sex trafficking? Because I think this is
Yeah.
an important issue in today's world.
Well, It's actually, I hope I didn't say the wrong thing about Save the Children before, but anyway, it's thanks to Save the Children that I met the women. And I had been working in Nepal for a month. I was sick. I was filled with bed bug bites. I was miserable and exhausted. And they said, okay, now this weekend you have to work with survivors of sex trafficking. And I'm like, no, please, I can't. And you don't say no to Save the Children. So I spent a weekend with this group of 24. They were part of an organization called Shakti Samuha, the first organization globally started by trafficked women to support other trafficked women. And I spent a weekend with them, and I was absolutely, first of all, fell in love 24 times. And I was horrified that not one of them had had an opportunity to tell her story. And they were expected to go out into the field and work with women who were recently rescued. And so they were triggered constantly. And they had absolutely no resources. And so I found this very disturbing. And I asked Save the Children if we could continue this project, and they weren't interested. So I told the women that I would come back on my own in a month and do a 2-week heal yourself training for them. They loved the idea. So I returned and I worked for 2 weeks, and we really started to explore. We go very, very deep in the trauma, and then we come up very, very loudly into celebration and dance and laugh and support. And it's kind of an arc going into the difficulties and then coming out into joy. And I used a lot of your exercises for grounding, a lot, and movement. And so at the end of that 2 weeks, 7 of them approached me and they said, we want to go even deeper. We want you to be our mentor. We want to keep doing this. We feel a lot of relief, even in this short period. We want to continue on our own healing, and we want to bring this into our world. So I've been working with them for 10 years. And at the beginning, one of them, she couldn't even open her eyes. And she's now a fully confident, strong, beautifully powerful activist against trafficking and working with rescued women. I can remember one instance where I was working with the 7, and 5 of them were on the ground sobbing with their eyes going back in their head. And I was like, I didn't even know how to handle it really. And touching the feet and holding the shoulders and trying to have them breathe. And it was very, very intense, very profound work. And luckily the full orange moon was rising just at that moment. And we all gathered and watched the moon together, huddled in a group. And this is the group who 2 years later, I took to Hong Kong to present about their experience, what they learned and what they bring to the world, to a group of 400 international expressive art therapists. And they danced and they talked and they shared. And so the story of these women is extremely powerful, unique, and it continues. I just spoke this morning to Sarala, our country director, and I said, tell me something you love about Harambee Arts. And she said, I love that I was able to transform my fear and my tears into power.
That says it all right there. And I have to say that I had the joy of meeting them.
Yeah.
And when they came to our training, and one of the things that I think that Gloria and I share is this piece of empowering the young women. And there's a exercise I learned from Gloria and integrated our community resiliency mall skills within it, which is called the Tree of Life. So I asked the girls, the ladies, if they would like to teach and there were like 60 people there from all over Nepal. And they said, oh, you want it? I said, yes, if you'd like to. And so they taught the Tree of Life. And then I just integrated the sensory pieces, and they got to learn that from me as well. But to see them in their full really appreciation, I think of, I mean, because they often express their appreciation of you as they were doing this, but that they were able to do that. And again, stating, oh my gosh, just a few years ago, I would never have even thought that I could speak in front of a group of people
Yeah,
and share.
yeah,
What they shared was their wisdom. Because
yeah.
the other thing I want to say about sex trafficking is the ladies that I talked to, they were trafficked as children. They
Yes.
were very, very young. So they really had unspeakable things happen to them, and the way that they were brokered by the sex trafficking industry in Nepal. And what they do, and I just was so amazed by them, they would go to the night district in Kathmandu and they would see children who were obviously being trafficked, and they would get them under their wing and literally pull them out of situations that were not at all, that were not necessarily safe for them.
Mhm.
They became empowered, can I say the word, warriors of protecting the children of Nepal?
Yes.
I wonder, we think about helping people. How do we help this horrible industry that exists in the world? But when you see the advocates that can come, that can be born out
Yeah.
of the expression of their pain and sorrow, but also the expression of their strength and resiliency. I think we both have been awestruck by this group of 7
Yes.
that we've met. So I think that if some
Oh.
of you are sitting out there and you're thinking, well, how can I be part of
Mhm.
helping and doing the kind of work that Gloria is talking about, I want to just say again, harambeearts.org is her organization. And also, I'm going to say this for you, Gloria, too, is that you appreciate donations, and you can go to her website and you can directly donate. And because of the way that Gloria works, she's not one that's amassing a personal fortune. She sends some money to Nairobi. She makes sure the gals in Nepal have the funds that they need to have in order to continue the sustainability of these projects. So I just want to say that too,
Thank you.
Gloria, about your work. But I want to kind of circle back because you have another Fulbright.
Uh-huh.
You're
Yeah.
collecting Fulbright fellowships here, your second one. So what are you doing in Dominica
Okay.
right now?
Well, I just want to add one thing
Okay,
to
go ahead.
Nepal, because again, this is a locally run. I want to really emphasize that. And for example, we had a Zoom meeting a few nights ago, and my team told me, we have a new idea. We're going to take a group of rescued girls next week on a hike, and then we're gonna dance, and then we're gonna do art. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys are so brilliant. And this is beautiful. So I just want to say that I've been doing this for 40 years, this work, and I'm constantly on a learning curve, and so grateful to my so many teachers. And there's one thing I didn't mention at the beginning, which is I want to say before we move on to Dominica. I learned most of what I know from children who were dying of cancer. And I think this is really important to my own personal story. And I worked for 8 years in an experimental unit where children, the worst hopeless cases from all over the world came, and they received experimental treatments, which were often hideous. And I spent a lot of time at the bedside, and I would see doctors come in, like 6.5 feet doctors, really big and strong, with a smile saying, well, you have another tumor. And I became really committed to finding out what the children really needed and wanted, and how to support them fully and authentically. And those children taught me how to be real and how to be present. And that's really what our whole foundation of this work grows from: my relationships with hundreds of children who have died, who they still visit me in my dreams 40 years later. So I just want to say that. And I have been to school, but I didn't learn that much in school. I really learned what I needed to know in the trenches with children who were dying, no home, who had been abused and so forth. So I'm really filled up with these connections and these teachers and the wisdom that I've been really fortunate to.
Well, I can just see their little souls surrounding you, your little
Yep.
guardian angels.
Yep.
and how their suffering and their deaths also gave you, I guess, this wisdom
That's
of
right.
how you bring
Absolutely.
forward healing to so many other children in the world. Thank you, Gloria. I've never quite heard you talk about that part of your journey. So any of our listeners who may be struggling with a child that has a threatening condition,
Yeah.
is, try to find someone that might be able to work with the expressive arts with them, because I do think it provides a vehicle that can help in the healing process that, words sometimes can't express,
Right.
but those drawings and that movement,
Right.
sometimes, even if they have limited movement, you can imagine movement, and that
Yes.
also comes inside the spirit. Yeah.
For instance, I had one girl with leukemia, age 12, who painted 4 flowers in a vase. She had a sister. There were 3 healthy flowers and 1 black flower drooping and dying. And it was that painting that really gave her parents the permission to let her go and to grieve and to listen to her and to meet her in her world, instead of, oh, you're going to get better, we'll take you to Disneyland next week. That was the transformation.
Well, and I think we can't underestimate, for our listeners to know that mediums of art impact different parts of the brain. And sometimes those metaphors about life that are expressed in expressive arts are not expressed in words. So that vehicle becomes a very important vehicle of help and heal. I know you don't like the word help, but I'm going to say help and healing, because it is something that helped those parents to see a different journey in terms of how they needed to approach their child. Well, I'm seeing that, oh my goodness, our time is quickly leaving us. And I'm going to have to bring you back to talk about Dominica, but because I don't want to leave today without talking about the coloring books.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the coloring books?
Yeah. Well, during the pandemic, the worst of it, I was paying my staff in Kenya regardless. And so they dreamed up this project they wanted to do because they wanted to feel like they were producing something of value and not just getting charity. So we decided to do a workbook, coloring book, that would focus on emotional issues that were arising for the children. And as a result of the pandemic. And we produced, with the children of Kibera, an extraordinary tool that is called You Are the Star of This Story. And if you want to see more about it, you can look at my website. And the coloring book takes you from please draw yourself at the beginning of the pandemic, before the pandemic, now, what helped you calm down, what would you share with other children that would be advice for them, and then, for example, empathy. And put all the difficult feelings that you're having as a result of the pandemic, put them in a box, throw that box far into the sky and say goodbye, pandemic, goodbye, bad feelings. And then the last part is shower yourself with love, shower all the children in the world who are also struggling with these types of emotions, same as you, shower them with love. So we go from a very individual, this is me in the pandemic, what I'm experiencing, to getting rid of the feelings, how I calm down, getting rid of the feelings, and then empathy, showering the whole world, children with love.
And, Gloria, as you say that, I just want to say, I think you are also that person, kind of like the citadel of empathy and compassion, and how you're showering the world that you come in contact with kindness and with love. And I just want to, I hope our listeners can see why I admire you so much. I know that you will continue to do this until you no longer can take that breath, that you'll continue to reach out to help the children of the world. So as we're in our last minute, I want to say again, you can contact Gloria at www.harambeearts.org. Please think about donating, or think about getting this beautiful book for your child. It might be something that your school might want to integrate. And Gloria, we have like 2 minutes left. So one word to kind of say.
One word. Oh my God. I'll just say that the coloring books, we're doing a whole series. And we've already done natural disasters, how they impact children. We're working on an immigrant children book and book for children with by and for children with cancer and so
So
forth.
keep
So
tuned. And
keep
yes,
tuned.
keep tuned. So to our listeners, please remember as you walk through your life today and during the next week, what else is true in your life. Think about the empathy and the love that Gloria shared with us today about how she showers children and adults with this all over the world. And maybe think about who you might be able to shower some love with, love to.
Showering Elaine.
Yes, thank you, my dear friend, as I'm feeling it all the way here in California, feeling that shower. And just remember again, what else is true. And this is Elaine Miller-Karras signing off from Resiliency Within. And I'll see you next time, same Monday at 1 o'clock on Pacific time. Thank you again, my dear friend, Gloria.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
All right, really good job today. Good show. We're all clear.
All right, Matt. Thank you so much.
Ah,
You did great. Oh, Gloria, look at our Facebook listeners are still there. So just
really?
anything more you want to say to them? I'm going to disconnect from Facebook in 1 second.
Just send money. No, I don't know.
Donate. No, you're so funny. Said
Donate.
donate to her great efforts around the globe. So I'm going to stop streaming right